Today I'm changing the intake boot on my 2008 Yamaha YZ450f. Tools you will need will be a 8mm socket, a 11mm socket, and a 10mm socket. And I'm going to start with taking off the plastics. So you've got the two 8mm, and I have newer stainless hardware that I got off eBay. And I'm not 100% sure if I can say that it is the exact same size as the factory hardware, because when I got this bike it was mismatch hardware. You've got the top back bolts holding the seat down, so then the seat come up and off. And then, problem with buying second-hand bikes is you have your problems. And you've got a 8mm for this back fender. One on each side at the back of the rear subframe of the bike. And then you've also got two that screw into the back of the airbox underneath. The tools I'm using are just some 1/4 inch tools because of the fact that it's an aluminum subframe. So a lot of the stuff you want tight enough that it's not going to wiggle its way out, but you don't want to over tighten it because you don't want to strip out your frame. And these two bolts I'm taking out are 13mm, and then you can slide the back half of your exhaust off, because once you remove these two bolts you have the entire weight of the exhaust where it bolts to the front of the head, right in your cylinder, and you don't want to risk breaking your exhaust. And this is a full FMF exhaust, but the factory exhaust should also just be slip-on. And then once you're there, you're going to take your 11 mil undo these bottom ones that bolt to the main frame of the bike, which is also aluminum, so you don't want them super tight because you don't want to strip the threads. And then on this one, for me, it's underneath this flap. You've got another bolt right here that ties the top of your subframe in. And you can get to it without taking that fairing off your gas tank, but you will need a extension. That is not quite an 11, but if you have a 6 point, although you should probably use the proper size, so do not use an 11 on it. But as I said before, some of these parts aren't the same parts that this bike came with. Once you have it unthreaded all the way, slide it out, and then you'll take a 4 mil Allen wrench, you'll have the back hose clamp on your carburetor that needs to come off, and I apologize for the poor lighting, but it is right there. So I'll take that off. It is a 5 mil Allen. You also don't want to get these super tight, but you do want them snug enough to where you're not pulling dirty air through, and all the air your bike takes in is through the filter. And you might have to go in between the two hoses to get to that clamp. But once you get there, technically you should be able to take this rear subframe off with the air box, just like so. I'm going to set that off to the side. And then it's all exposed just like so. And you're going to loosen up this hose clamp right here. And I apologize for not having the view of that happening, but I'm working with what I got. And then once that's loosened up, you can pull the carb very carefully out of the intake boot. And then you've got the ones that the 3 bolts that attach the intake boot to the cylinder, which on more than most of the bikes that you're going to be doing this on, more than likely have not ever had this taken off. So you're going to have to deal with the corrosion that you get with a steel bolt in an aluminum product. And the reason I say that is because a lot of times there will be corrosion that you have to fight with. And the other one is right here. Which you also might struggle with. Now if you have Allen keys on a socket, it would make this job easier by a long shot, which alright, so I had to end up dropping the rear spring, but you can see why I'm replacing this by the cracks that are in the rubber, because it is getting older and is degrading. So now we transfer the clamp from the old one onto the new one. And then we start putting it back together. So I'm going to leave the clamp off for now. And I'm going to slide it into its home. While at the same time not trying to screw up the new boot. And I said earlier about the steel bolts going in aluminum with the corrosion. So you should clean the threads on this, but due to lack of time, I am going to clean them the best I can with a rag. And you want to start these by hand because you don't want to cross thread them. Now that I have two of them started, I'm just going to evenly tighten those two down. So I use the carb as partial leverage to evenly slide the boot onto its sleeve. And you'll tighten these down where they are snug, because the torque spec for them is 10 foot-pounds. And that is coming directly from the Yamaha service manual. So then, once I get this all back together, tightened down, I'll show you guys better with a light. Alright, so as you can see, you've got this bolt here, that bolt there, right here, and then this one right here. And you'll have to take out this bolt. You'll have to take this nut off. Very carefully remove this so you can move your spring out of the way. And then you can change out the boot a whole lot easier. And from here on out, it is assembling the bike back together. So you've got your rear half of the subframe. And I'm going to put the top bolt in first. So I can use that as a pivoting point to help me get the boot onto the carb for the air box to the carb. You want to make sure none of those come loose. And then you want to make sure that your carb is properly lined up. With the boot for the air box. Just like so. And then you can put these in. And again, you don't want them too tight. You don't want to strip the frame, but you want them tight enough. They're not going to get loose and come out on you while you're riding. Once you're there, you can restart the assembly process. I'll be going back over everything to make sure that it's nice and tight, not going to come apart while I'm riding, because who wants to be out in the middle of having fun, have their bike fall apart on them and just take away all that enjoyment. And then from here it is putting your exhaust back on, your plastics, and your seat.